Hello everyone. Since episode 2 I did a lot of the wiring, so yeah, obviously ran everything through the drag chain, and here I ended up just ordering a bunch of connectors from DigiKey. These are just 6-pole. I'm just going to check the wiring one more time and then we'll power the printer on. I turned the printer on. As you can hear, it's pretty loud. It looks fine, so it's now time to do the configuration, and yeah, we'll probably get our first prints with this after that. Also I need to put the panels on, so I'll do that as well, and then yeah, I'll do the configuration in the other room, and then we'll do our first test print with this. As you might expect from a DIY printer, there were some problems that needed fixing, but most of those are just boring stuff like wiring, firmware, etc. So I won't go into too much details about those. I will talk about the layer fan in a bit. That's something that's worth mentioning, but I will talk about the first print before that, so let's move on to that. But before that, thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. PCBWay is well known for their PCB manufacturing services. I used their PCB services many times in the past for multiple different projects on this channel, and even before I was sponsored to do so, and I was always happy with my orders, so I can confidently recommend them to anyone who's looking for a PCB manufacturer for their next project. They can also manufacture flex and rigid flex PCBs, higher-end PCBs designed to meet specific stricter requirements, and they also have a PCB assembly service. For more information, click the link in the description below. The first print from the Micron is, well, obviously printed now, and it's not great, as you can see. So there are a lot of things I need to figure out in terms of the tuning. It feels like the pressure advance setting is wrong. That's whatever default is set at. There are also a lot of resonance marks that I need to get rid of doing ADXL 345 tuning. But the biggest problem is obviously the layer fan not being there. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out one of the problems with the hot end on the Micro, and that initially I thought it was wiring related, because these layer fans or part cooling fans or whatever you like to call these days, these weren't turning. And that usually indicates a wiring problem, especially because A, these are new, and B, these are labeled as 24 volts, and these are the fans included with the DFH kit. But I don't blame the kit. Maybe I did something bad, I fried them or something like that, I don't know, as unlikely as that might sound, because I did supply only 24 volts. But yeah, anyway, these fans aren't turning, so after doing a lot of troubleshooting with the wiring, I eventually decided to just remove these and test it with an external power supply set to 24 volts. 23.7 is close enough, and well, even with an external power, as you can see, both of these don't turn, and the wiring here just is correct. Just they're wired in parallel, so that's not it either. So yeah, I don't know what's wrong with these fans. Maybe these are that from the factory, from GDS time, who knows. The thing is, I have to replace these, so I won't be using a layer fan on my Micron for a temporary period until I can source new fans. So obviously the print quality needs a lot of work, but there isn't much I can do without the layer fans, so I want to move on to something else, and that is air filtration. So I want to add an air filter for the Micron, and I want to use a recirculating filter, not an exhaust, so because it helps with chamber temperatures. So yeah, with recirculating filters I have two options. The Nevermore series has Nevermore Micro, has the V5 Duo or the V4, but the V4 is the only one that can be printed on a Voron Zero size bed. The V5 Duo doesn't fit on the Voron Zero size bed. I have the Nevermore Micro V4 option, or the ZeroFilter. ZeroFilter is the designer of a lot of these 3D printer for ANS printers, like tiny printers. Yeah, he obviously needed a small filter for his printers, so designed this. And this uses a 4010 fan and has a pretty small cartridge, but in a lot of printers you can mount two of these like this. So with two of these, the filtering capacity should be more or less the same. So actually I think he says it's more than the V4, yeah, it says it holds 28 grams instead of 24 grams, so theoretically more. But and the nice thing about this for tiny printers is this is even more compact than the Nevermore Micro V4. So yeah, this time I'm going to go with the ZeroFilter. On the Voron Zero I'm using the Nevermore Micro V4, as you know, but yeah, for this printer I think this makes more sense. I can also fit this underneath the heat pad, so it should help with air recirculation as well, which should help with chamber temperatures. So not that it needs help with chamber temperatures, they're actually pretty good, but yeah, this should help even more. So Yeah, this is the air filter I want to use, so let's start printing this and I'll be back with the filter assembled. So here is the assembled ZeroFilter for the Micron. I went with 2 cartridges and 2 bases just to add a bit more capacity, because these cartridges are kind of small. But yeah, it's assembled. You mount using these brackets, you mount this to the bed extrusions, and yeah, now it's time to mount this to the Micron. I also filled these up with the active carbon, as you might guess, and for that I used the Nevermore active carbon that I have. So if you don't know, this is very important. If you don't use the correct type of active carbon, there are a lot of horrible images on the Nevermore Micro repository. Yeah, your parts will rust, and I did an experiment a while ago. Video will be linked in the description and the card above, but tested a bunch of cheap active carbon and with a bunch of screws, and yeah, this is the sort of result you get. So it is very important to use the correct type of active carbon, just an FYI. But yeah, now that this is assembled, it's now time to mount this to the Micron. I removed the bed from the Micron and mounted the ZeroFilter, and yeah, it fits in there just like it should. But there is one thing that I want to change, and that is the bed mount cables under the bed. So there is a hole in this ACM panel for the wire routing, and that's where I routed the wires originally. There's also a cutout in the back for the drag chain, but that, as you can see, that is A, really full, and B, I also don't want to have an ugly cable running from the bed all the way back there anyway, so I want to route the cable from the hole in the ACM panel. I could also drill another hole around here, or just expand this one. This is a long story. It was because of the wrong bed mount at the time, but yeah, I could also expand that one, but yeah, still I don't feel like doing that, especially because there are no electronics in there, which ACM panel has aluminium. Some metal shavings can make its way into the electronics, and I don't also feel like removing all of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to design a new mounting bracket for the Micron. So this is a mounting bracket on both sides, as you can see. It lets you mount the 2 ZeroFilters like this, back to back, but there is no gap in between. If I just made this a bit larger, a bit wider, I should be able to have a gap in there enough to route these wires, and the wires for the fans for the ZeroFilter will also go through that hole. So yeah, just need to design and reprint these 2 brackets, and should be good enough. So now the air filter is mounted. I just enlarged this a little bit by 10 millimeters, if I remember correctly, on both sides. And yeah, this is from the Micron repository, by the way, not from the ZeroFilter repository. But yeah, I just modified the CAD file, extended this a little bit, and then I was able to route the bed cables between the filter units. So yeah, it's mounted. The bed is mounted back again as well, and the filter is actually right now on, but yeah, it's very quiet. I'm pretty happy about that as well, because the Nevermore Micro on my War on Zero, spoiler alert I guess for the next episode, since I'm pretty sure this will be released before that one, is pretty loud. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, the fact that this is much quieter and actually has a decent amount of airflow, better than the Nevermore Micro on my War on Zero. So yeah, pretty happy with this, as I said. The replacement layer fans arrived and I mounted them to the tool head, so let's do our first print with the new layer fans. The first few prints from the new layer fans are well printed, and as you can see, they look pretty good. There are a couple of things that need fixing. First of all, there is some warpage that I need to figure out. It's not the PI sheet is clean, and I am squishing enough, so it's not those two, but could be the bed temperature, or I don't know, something like that. I'll look into that. There's a bit of problem caused by the bed, but otherwise, yeah, these prints look pretty good. The cube looks pretty good as well. There is an issue with the size of these bearing holes. So if you don't know, this smaller Micron cube and the larger Voron cubes, they have these holes on the top and the bottom, and you're supposed to be put a bearing in there. It should be an easy fit, so you shouldn't have to push too hard, but it shouldn't just fall in like this either, so it shouldn't be this loose. So yeah, there is a bit of an issue there as well that I need to figure out, but yeah, overall the prints look pretty good, so I'm pretty happy with these. Actually, there's nothing wrong with the extrusion multiplier or anything like that. I guess either I didn't have the correct bearing for the Micron cube, or I maybe the dimensions aren't actually modeled for the bearings, unlike the Voron Cube. But on the Voron Cube, this is a Voron Cube, I don't know if the lighting is great or not, the bearings fit in just fine. So this is the bearing for the top. If I push it in, you can see that it doesn't fall in. I actually have to push it in, but very little force is more than enough, and it doesn't fall out. And same for the bearing on the bottom side, again doesn't fall in. You actually have to push it in and doesn't fall out. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with that either, and the print quality is actually pretty good as well, and also started improving the bed adhesion too. So yeah, actually what you're about to see now is from the past, but so this is from the future, but yeah, help fix the bed adhesion as well. So the print quality is actually pretty good. Now I'm trying to tune for speed. Sorry for recording the screen on the laptop directly. I don't have a way to record the screen and software on this laptop, but just want to show you an issue that I was alerted to when I set the bed to 110 degrees to see if it helps with warping. Yeah, sometime after that, the clip reformer just failed. So watch the temperature here once I set it to 110 degrees or anything at this point. You can see that the actual bed temperature is still going down, not up. So the bed heater isn't working. This most likely means one of the fuses on the bed blew. So there is a fuse in the heater supplied by DFH, and I added an extra fuse as well. The fuse I added is rated for 125 degrees, not 110 or anything like that. But I also doubt that the fuse in the heater of the DFH bed is any different, so I don't know. Theoretically, it could also be a wiring issue, but since the bed is static, I feel like one of the fuses being blown is still more likely, but I guess we'll see. I have to remove the bed and we'll take a look. It's pretty easy to figure out which fuse is blown. So I removed the bed from the printer and I already found the problem as well, but just want to show you the troubleshooting process for this, just in case you want to figure out if you have a blown fuse or not. So this is the bed removed from the printer. I also got rid of I was using electrical tape on here, but you might also use a heat shrink. That's the better solution in my opinion, but I was too lazy at the time, so I was using electrical tape. But yeah, just remove the covering on these two as well, and know they weren't shorted. So the next thing to check is to check the resistance between the ring terminals or whatever terminals you have for your bed heater. It should be about 8 ohms. So if it is much different than that, or if there is no conductivity at all reported on your multimeter, like in this case, then there is a blown fuse. So we know there is a blown fuse. In this case, the specific setup has 2 thermal fuses. There is a thermal fuse in here integrated with the bed heater, and there is an extra thermal fuse I added on top. So let's check if this is blown or not. And to do that, just measure the resistance across its legs. So let's just do that, and there should be almost no resistance. But in this case, as you can see, there is no conductivity, so this fuse is blown. And just to verify that the thermal fuse in here isn't blown as well, you can measure the resistance from this lead going to the bed heater to the other ring terminal, so one of these two. Yeah, looks like this one. As I said, it should be about 8 ohms in this case. For a bed heater, this voltage and this wattage is 7.8 ohms. So yeah, there is no blown fuse in here, so the fuse here is blown. So we just have to replace this fuse, and the bed heater should work just like normal. This fuse I am installed here is rated for 125 degrees Celsius, so there is something wrong with this one. Manufacturing tolerances aren't supposed to be that big, so I was heating this to 110 degrees. It shouldn't have blown, but it happens. So just replace the fuse if this happens to you as well, and also double check your wiring double check your wiring to see if there is anything else wrong with it, and then mount this back to your printer and it should be good to go. And with the replacement fuse, as you can see, the bed heater now works. So that's going to be it for this video. Now that the printer is working, stay tuned for a lot of mods, just like I did with a lot of my other printers. If you have any mod ideas, you can leave them in the comments down below and I will definitely consider them. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like down below, and thanks for watching.